Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Richard here again. and so today I wanted to start on what I think is going to be a really cool series, YouTube series, going through each of the 64 hexagrams from the what I've been calling the Cosmic I Ching, or more properly known as I Ching, Oracle of the Cosmic Way. Uh, this book, this book right here. Which has really kind of turned into uh, like a new my new like philosophy on pretty much everything, um, and has incredible relevance to human design, cosmic human design included. As I've explained several times, I believe that this book was the underlying inspiration for the entire thing, although I didn't realize it at the time. So I got this book about a year ago. I just randomly found it on Amazon, just like I found the, definitive book of human design, which is what got me into human design in the first place, and all that. Um, I didn't read it at the time though, uh, which was about a year ago when I first started. Um, I don't know, getting these insights about, how using a different type of astrology is going to change the entire human design chart and all that. But I never actually read it until a few weeks, or I guess it's been a month or two ago now by this point. But yeah, so today we're going to start with first hexagram, which you'll notice in the Cosmic I Ching has a different name than you might be used to. It's usually called the creative, in almost every translation of the I Ching I've ever seen. And this is the case for several of the hexagrams. They have kind of new names because, so the authors in writing this book, they actually consulted the I Ching over supposedly every single word that is written here. um, so this book, in a way, can be seen as being written by um, the cosmic consciousness itself, which speaks through the I Ching. That's what speaks through the I Ching. Um, or actually, it's speaking to you, to your feelings, um, so yeah, let's jump right into it. And I guess what I'm going to do is uh, like just basically make this an audio book of sorts, and kind of read through the entire hexagram, at least for the first two hexagrams, because they're so important. And then I'll kind of give my commentary as I go. And because there are some incredible things in this book that I feel need to be expressed and to be more known about, quite frankly. So, hexagram 1, the cosmic consciousness, Qian over Qian, all 6 yang lines. Okay, so the text begins. This hexagram is inseparable from hexagram 2, since together they show the two sides of the cosmic whole. Hexagram 1 shows the expanding energy of the light. Hexagram 2 shows the energy of the dark that attracts the light. The judgment. So each hexagram traditionally has a judgment, which is when you're consulting the I Ching as an oracle, the first thing you'll usually read is the judgment for that hexagram. And then what follows that is the text of the judgment, with some explanations as to the so the judgment's usually some kind of metaphor, right? So yeah, so there's a text that follows the judgment, and then the 6 lines, which each have their own individual meaning. And I think you'll find that in this version of the I Ching, a lot of the lines are not what you're used to at all. All right, so let's begin here. The judgment. Yuan Hing Li Qin. The cosmic consciousness is great through its interpenetration of all things. It discerns what feels harmonious and brings it into form through transformation. All right, so this let's keep reading a bit. Let's keep reading a bit. because the text really does explain all this stuff, and I'll give my commentary when I feel that it's especially needed, or to point out something that I feel is not exactly clear, or basically just whatever I want to do, okay? All right, so cosmic consciousness is the name the sage, okay, here we go. So the sage, what is that? Well, that the sage is the name the authors give to the consciousness that speaks through the I Ching. And later on, they give it the appellation of the cosmic teacher. So the sage is the cosmic teacher who answers through the I Ching. So this is the name the sage gives to the aggregate consciousness of the cosmos. It is the invisible origin of all the things that exist in form as nature. Nature is hexagram 2, by the way. Nature is the primary way in which the cosmic consciousness manifests. All the things that exist in nature are compressed cosmic consciousness and are unique aspects of it. In extremely condensed form, the 4 Chinese words of the judgment, Yuan Hing Li Qin, show the main cosmic principles that characterize the cosmic consciousness. Yuan means great, the head, or the first. Hing means penetrating and inner truth. Li means discerning, and Qin means transformation from non-form into form and duration. The cosmic consciousness and nature are inseparable. They interpenetrate each other in the same way that a person's consciousness, which is invisible, interpenetrates with his body, which is visible. The experience they make together as an integrated being connects the person with his cosmic origin and contributes, along with the experience of all the other things that exist, to the constant evolution of the cosmic consciousness. The words, "it discerns what feels harmonious," refers to the conscious response of the cosmos to everything that happens. The cosmic consciousness is primarily a feeling consciousness that also thinks. This conscious response is a thinking response that is expressed in the cosmic words, yes and no. It says yes to what feels in harmony with its unity and to what benefits all of its parts. It says no to what feels harmful to its unity, discord, and retreats from it. While its parameters allow dissonance, small mistakes, they do not allow discord, continuing mistakes. Thus, as a whole, the cosmic consciousness is a system of principles of harmony with self-defined parameters. The phrase, "and brings it into form through transformation," refers to the fact that the cosmic consciousness employs transformation rather than changes as its primary way of operating. Through transformation, it brings into form what feels harmonious. The result of this is nature. Penetrating also refers to the way cosmic evolution is carried out. As far as humans are concerned, it occurs through the invisible penetration of harmonious thought and feeling from one person to everyone around him. So that's what penetration is, which is also hexagram 57. And by the way, it's the hexagram that 57, that is, that the I Ching told me when I asked it, like, how does it feel about cosmic human design or whatever, and it said it was penetrating, which is kind of what it is. It feels harmonious to people. Yeah, so penetrating, it occurs through the invisible penetration of harmonious thought from one feeling to every person around him. In order to know what feels harmonious, every person possesses a cosmic memory of what cosmic harmony feels like, also known as inner truth. In this volume, that is also known as inner truth. And it's a memory that's located in every body cell. It is meant to guide human thinking and help humans find the correct words and names for things, words that express their essence. When feelings of yes and no come from a person's inner truth into his fully conscious mind and are then acted upon by saying the inner yes or inner no to them, they penetrate without effort or intention to the inner truth of those around them. Penetration takes place in the realm of the atom, where atoms are transformed by specific helping aspects of the cosmic consciousness. All human efforts and intentions to make things happen through change, as a mechanical nature or by superficial alterations, block this transformation because they come from the ego and its use of power. The cosmos does not collaborate with the ego. So already we've got some huge differences from classic I Ching. So this whole idea of transformation versus changes. So apparently the E of I Ching is more appropriately translated as transformation rather than changes. You know, you often see, you know, the I Ching, and underneath it, you'll see the heading or the Book of Changes or something like that. That's how it's classically written. But apparently, as this passage just indicated, changes, as in, you know, making superficial changes. But that's the thing, most people don't consider those kinds of things superficial, like changing your attitudes, your belief, even it's still just a superficial change. You didn't really have to do anything or change any underlying beliefs to change, you know, to tack on just another belief or another attitude, you know. Um, and we'll talk more about transformation later, but yeah, it's interesting here how it relates changes to the ego. And because of the interference of the ego, here we go back to the text, humans have been given the I Ching to show them the cosmic way and to help them discern which thoughts and actions are in harmony with the cosmos. So that is huge right there, that it's basically saying that this book, this I Ching, all versions of the I Ching throughout time has been a cosmic gift to humans. It's still a cosmic gift, and it's still around today. You know, and it's actually for the purpose of us helping us free ourselves from this ego. Okay. Yeah. Okay, back to the text. The four principles that characterize the cosmic consciousness also describe the purpose of consulting the oracle as the way for humans to bring themselves into harmony with the cosmic consciousness before undertaking something. Each term describes a step in a four-step process. Consulting the oracle means learning to discern what thoughts are in harmony with the cosmic way and saying the inner yes to them, while saying the inner no to all disharmonious thoughts. The I Ching is concerned with the human ego as the primary source of discord with the cosmos. The individual ego is the product of a collective ego that has developed from a false use of language. This false use of language has led humans to imagine themselves to be the center of the universe. It is the key idea that has caused humans to separate from the cosmic unity. It has also resulted in the creation of a demonic sphere of consciousness and a parallel reality that compete with the cosmic consciousness, causing it to retreat from humans. That's pretty provocative right there. Incorrect thoughts and feelings having their origin in the demonic sphere of consciousness harm everything they focus on. However, they do not affect things through penetration, but through jumping from the shoulder of one person to another. They are the dragons mentioned in the lines of this hexagram, which we'll get to very shortly. All right, continuing. The cosmic evolution is meant to be achieved jointly with the full consent of all its aspects, including human beings. This is the cosmic meaning of the joint approach mentioned in hexagram 19, approaching jointly. Again, that's another new name for hexagram 19. However, so long as humans see themselves as set up above all other aspects of existence as special, they remain outside the cosmic unity, inhibiting its evolution. Okay. The cosmic consciousness is eternal, perpetual, and without direction in time. This is why it can always be found and revealed in this very moment. I love that line. I love that line so much because it's so true. It really is. And it's like, it feels to me like this grand truth that you know, some certain very bad people have been trying to obscure and deny the existence of for millennia. Yeah, so Wilhelm, as in the author of the most popular version of the I Ching, the Wilhelm translation, says he translated Qian, the name of this hexagram, as the creative heaven. based on a quote from Confucius, which said, "Great indeed is the generating power of the creative. All beings owe their beginning to it. This power permeates all heaven." Three problems occur with this rendering. First, that it becomes the basis for seeing the cosmos as having a hierarchical order with heaven above and earth below. Second, that heaven is the source of the primal creative force. And third, the idea of a creation implies time as linear or discontinuous, with all things having a beginning and an end. From a cosmic perspective, these conceptions are the result of a feudal culture that has imagined the cosmos to operate and be ordered like itself, as hierarchical and as based on power. These conceptions provide the basis for the feudal idea that humans are the special creatures of creation, whose purpose it is to create heaven's order on earth. Ain't that the truth? The purpose of this hexagram is to show the true nature of the cosmic consciousness and how the collective ego competes with it through its institutions. Just as the individual ego is a false self that oppresses and sacrifices a person's true self, the collective ego is a false ordering created by institutionalized beliefs and societal myths that oppress and sacrifice what would otherwise be the natural order of society. Just as the true self, which is in accord with the cosmos already, constantly benefits from its help, so would the natural order of society be guided and helped by the cosmic consciousness. What prevents this symbiosis is the constant attempt of the collective ego to deny the existence of the cosmic consciousness and to put its own institutions in its place. It goes back to what I was just saying about how some very bad people have tried to obscure the existence of the cosmic consciousness. And, we see that everywhere today. Back to the text. The various hexagrams of the I Ching shows that the cosmic consciousness operates through harmony and attraction without employing any power, none whatsoever. The modus operandi of the collective ego, by contrast, is entirely based on the use of power. And I believe in this volume, hexagram 34 is known as using power rather than just power, because there's actually no such thing as power, apparently, but we'll get to that later. Back to the text. Each line of hexagram 1 presents the dragon as a metaphor, and isn't this an epic dragon we have here? We'll get to him shortly. Presents the dragon as a metaphor for the collective ego and its accumulated ideas that seek to control the life of the individual. They do this by first defining human nature and subsequently human goals and purposes in terms of the collective ego. These definitions conflict with the real purpose of human life, which is for each individual to fulfill his uniqueness instead of fulfilling the empty ideal of being special. Man, doesn't that just ring true? How many times in our society do you hear or see this advertising like, you've got to be somebody special, or you've got, or you're deficient to begin with, you need to become something special, all this stuff. All right, back to the text. Only in this way can each person contribute to the ongoing evolution of the cosmic whole. Because the collective ego is a composite of mental constructs that depends upon the energies of each individual to keep it functioning, it is parasitic in nature and ultimately destructive to the life force of the individual and to the whole of nature. Wow. Okay, so this is saying that our society, our entire society, and this aggregate of human ideals and beliefs to see humans as the center of the universe is actually destructive to nature and parasitic to all of existence. Yeah, that's kind of mind-blowing. So we go on with the text. The collective ego's control of the individual is initiated during early childhood by its introjecting mistaken beliefs into the psyche of the child through a continuous conditioning process. The phrases and images of these beliefs are what Confucius is reported to have called the seeds of good fortune or misfortune. These seeds gradually, and these are, by the way, demonic seeds it's talking about, these seeds gradually grow in a person's psyche, suppressing his original inner program and controlling his actions. As controlling elements that reflect the values of the collective ego, they are the dragons referred to in this hexagram and in hexagram 2, because these values are inserted into the psyche through threats accompanied by punishments and through the flattery that humans are special. They have a demonic character, haunting the individual and filling him with guilt if he goes against them by following his inner truth. Those ideas of the collective ego that are flattering and suggestive, especially those offering the fame, success, and personal power associated with becoming a hero, operate as imps within the psyche. These imps form the ego, which then seeks to dominate the individual's psyche and repress his true self. Although these demonic elements, dragons, demons, and imps, the latter of which we have added after seeing them in meditation, are the subject of concern in all the hexagrams, they are rarely named in this volume because doing so gives them a recognition which empowers them. The I Ching shows that these demonic elements are structures created by language and accordingly can be dismantled, phrase by phrase and image by image. They are eradicated from the psyche by saying the inner no to the seed phrases and images that comprise them. Indeed, ridding oneself of them is the effort referred to in the I Ching as undertaking something, which you see a lot in the I Ching. The lines of hexagram 1 show in their sequence how the individual ego is led to develop itself from an imp into a dragon. The final step is shown in line 4, where the person has wholeheartedly internalized the values of the collective ego and become its hero, who in turn enforces its values. In line 5, his fantasy sees him flying high in the heavens as his reward, as we see our friend here doing. The lines thus show how a person splits himself off from the cosmic unity through the creation of the ego and through accepting the myth that he is special and superior. Doesn't that just hit the nail on the head? As mentioned, the mental program that creates the ego has been installed in the psyche with the help of threats, punishments, flatteries, and rewards. Therefore, the ego takes on a bully character that keeps the true self intimidated and locked in self-doubt. The person needs to clearly realize that the ego is a parasite in the psyche that not only feeds on its life energy, but that, if not counteracted, will eventually destroy him. To rid himself of it requires that he recognize and deprogram all the false phrases and images in which it is based. The purpose of the I Ching as a gift of the cosmos to humans is to help the individual achieve this divestiture from the ego that was installed at birth through childhood by the collective ego. This hexagram shows that the cosmic consciousness is the source of the life force, chi energy. This life force is comprised of helping consciousnesses that are the source of all creativity, nourishment, help, and healing. Throughout the I Ching, these consciousnesses are anonymously called helpers, friends, armies, or are referred to indirectly as a wagon for loading, a yellow lower undergarment, or as a vehicle for crossing the great water. These helpers come to a person's aid whenever they are called, but especially when they are included in his everyday awareness. As many of the hexagrams show, these helpers become blocked or demonized by beliefs that deny their existence and that slander human nature and nature as a whole. And we'll get a lot more into helpers later and what exactly those are. While the collective ego places humans at the center of the universe, it simultaneously asserts that the individual is insignificant in the overall order of things. It does this by telling him he is not good enough in and of himself, and therefore needs to become something if his life is to have meaning. This contradictory logic has the purpose of denying two facts: that the individual has true significance and a cosmic purpose, and that he has all the help he needs from the cosmos already to live his life successfully. The purpose of these lies, that's what they are, right, is to make him dependent on the collective ego for its recognition and help. The collective ego asserts itself as the sole authority to define the person's success, while at the same time making its measure unattainable. This last device seeks to keep the person permanently attached to its goals, the collective ego's goals. The I Ching and the people who control it, which who knows who those people are, but I imagine that there's a group of them or something that originally came up with all this. Anyways, back to the text. The I Ching shows us that the only way out of this mental maze is to say the inner no to the seed premise that the individual is born deficient and that he must become something. Freeing himself from this construct restores his original wholeness and self-esteem. The second premise put forward by the collective ego is the idea that the individual is indebted for everything he has ever received. Ain't that the truth? Thus, he owes the debt of his life eternally to his parents, the debt of his religious training to the church, the debt of his education to the school he has attended, etc. When all the debts that extend from home to nation are added up, his psyche is burned with an unpayable debt that becomes transferred into a repository of guilt and false feeling of loyalty to the collective ego. This unpayable debt is the dragon that haunts each line of this hexagram, and is the driving force that separates the individual more and more from his unity with the cosmos. Both the guilt and the loyalty strengthen the power and control of the collective ego and divert the individual's attention from remembering what his repressed inner truth could tell him, that all existence, including the daily sustenance he receives, is a gift of the cosmic consciousness and its expression as nature. All right. Well, that was kind of crazy. The application section, we'll skip that for now. Basically, just get some supplementary material. So let's get into each of these lines. So remember, the text of the judgment said that each of these lines is a is like a progression. Well, so that's the thing with this book. Okay, each hexagram can be seen as in one of two ways: from the collective ego's perspective or from the cosmic perspective. And that collective ego perspective has been built up over the centuries and is especially acute in the Wilhelm Bain's translation of the I Ching, which keeps all that in. And in this version, what they've done is they've left a lot of that in so that you can see exactly how the collective ego has manipulated itself to this position throughout the ages. But it also presents the cosmic perspective of each of these lines and hexagrams and their true intended meaning. And since the collective ego is mainly based on the false use of language, the correct use of language is what restores the cosmic harmony to these lines and hexagrams. And that's why they changed the names of some of the hexagram titles, because they go on to say that if you use the wrong name for something, it actually harms that thing's nature. It doesn't matter what kind of wrong name it is. It just is, as long as it's a wrong name, it harms its nature. So, and it also goes on to say that the unreflective use of language is one of the main problems that we humans have in freeing ourselves from this ego trap, collective ego, thing. All right, so back to the text, line 1 of hexagram 1. The text says, so yeah, each line has a brief text, metaphor type thing, just like the judgment, and then explanation of the line's meaning. And in this version includes both the cosmic meaning and the more traditional meaning, which is usually slanted towards the collective ego. So line 1 reads, hidden dragon, do not act. In the broad and general sense, the hidden dragon refers to the collective ego, which is presented as institutions' values as the only source of solutions. This idea serves to divert people from recognizing its dragon nature and obscures the fact that the cosmos is the true source of all their needs. In the particular sense, the hidden dragon indicates the presence of demonic influences in the situation being referred to. These influences can be back-of-the-mind thoughts that are generated by ego considerations. They can also come from a projection, spell, or poison arrow. So long as these influences are not recognized and eradicated, the action the person takes will not be successful. Among these influences is a poison arrow that makes a person believe. Poison arrow, by the way, what the heck is that? So basically a poison arrow is like a magical spell, which are real things apparently, according to the Cosmic I Ching. And they are basically come down to words being used incorrectly in a harmful way or in a restrictive, rigid, freezing way. So spells, it says, have the effect of freezing a situation in time. Like a spell can be something as simple as he always is like that. Okay, that puts a spell on whoever you're talking about, and then you'll see that like their behavior turns out to always be like that because you use the word always. Okay, so you got to be careful. The word always tends to lead to those kinds of spells put on people. And it's a spell because like unless they say like the inner no to that, it's going to subconsciously implant itself in them and then carry out that programming. Groups of words are like programs that run in our consciousness. And if they're not filtered out, if we don't say no to them, then they can become embedded in us and hard to figure out where they're coming from and affect our entire psyche. So a poison arrow is a type of spell that mainly affects the physical body, and it can be something like I'm going to develop arthritis or something like that. I don't actually believe that, but if I did, that would be putting a poison arrow on myself, that I would have arthritis, and then I actually would have arthritis, unless I say no to that, which I definitely do say no to that. So and it goes on to say, back to the text, among these influences is a poison arrow that makes a person believe that by himself he is faulty or not good enough in and of himself. This poison arrow has been activated in relation to the situation at hand. Before the outer situation could be corrected, he needs to make an inner effort to rid himself of any seed phrases that suggest he is faulty, such as, you are not sufficient within yourself to cope with life, blah, blah, blah. These poison arrows, which originate in the collective ego, have the effect of shutting off certain synapses in the brain, isolating a person from helping aspects within himself, thus robbing him of his completeness, because they firmly put him on the path of the collective ego to separate him from the cosmic unity. To compensate for these supposed deficiencies in his nature, the collective ego suggests that each person has unrecognized greatness or heroic potential that, develop under its supervision, will overcome his deficiency. This idea is the origin of all ambition, striving, and subsequent arrogance. The person's ambition has the goal of redeeming him in the eyes of the human authority that has pronounced him to be inherently inferior in the first place. The authority can be his parents, peers, teachers, or the various institutions of society when they act on behalf of the collective ego. His ambition is to become either equal with or in charge of that authority, be it in the social, political, economic, or spiritual sphere. When demonic elements are hidden in the psyche, they influence the person's actions against his will. They reduce his options to those that are offered by the collective ego, which generally speaking are either or choices. Seeing his world in this narrow framework leaves him feeling helpless and stuck because he has been isolated from cosmic help. The person who has thus developed an inferiority complex is caught in a logical circular reference that is unsolvable within its own logical system. The ideas that comprise the circular reference cause the person to see only the institutions of the collective ego as a source of help. Therefore, he looks to institutions, hierarchical authorities, and solutions that are often the lesser of two evils, and leave him unfulfilled and embroiled in further problems. From his disappointments and humiliations, which in reality are fates he has created, he draws even more false conclusions about their causes. These false conclusions only isolate him further from his true self and from cosmic help. This situation continues until, through some shock or difficulty, he recognizes that by myopically looking within the system for answers, he will find only the same either-or options that led him around in circles. Once he takes the courage to say the inner no to the mistaken ideas that hold up this system and calls for help by looking within himself, can he reunite himself with the cosmos? So that's kind of, that for me, that's the real malice behind this collective ego, and it programs us to think we are inferior, inherently deficient, not capable already of fulfilling our uniqueness, which is the true purpose of our lives. And it suggests all these other things that are wrong with us, and that we need its help, right? The collective ego, like, we need to go to this school, we need to be a CEO, we need to make a lot of money or something, like those kinds of things. But in reality, all of that is just draining your life energy. It's draining your life energy and giving it to this monolithic collective ego, which this basically like a computer program created through the false use of language that seeps into our subconscious, and we don't even realize it. That's the thing, we don't even realize it. We don't even realize the power that words have, but they really do. All right, finishing up with line 1 right here. This line can also refer to poison arrows that have made a person believe he is inferior and guilty as the hidden source of an illness. To restore his health, he needs to rid himself of these poison arrows. In making this effort, he needs not only to call on the cosmic helpers to get free of the illness, but also to ask them to help him free himself of its sources in his psyche. To do less would allow the above-mentioned disharmonious attitudes to keep the illness in place or shift its locus to a new place. All right, line 2. Dragon appearing in the field. It furthers one to see the great man. This line counsels how to respond when the ego, the dragon, begins to appear in another. The great man refers to the sage that accompanies every person. That's so important. As the ego appears, the sage in his presence becomes immobilized unless someone else calls on the sage to intervene on behalf of his true self. This is especially important in those moments when the observers tend to give up on the other as hopeless. If he gives up on that person, the sage remains blocked for him. When called to intervene, however, the sage is activated and displaces those elements of the ego that are active in the situation. Wow. So you're telling me, this book is telling me that you can, inwardly call on the sage, which is in every person's presence, to basically activate and displace the ego in that person. And it actually works. Like that, anyone can do that. Isn't that just mind-blowing? Oh my God. Yeah. All right, continuing with line 2. A person may receive this line when he has concluded that another is evil and thus has put a spell on the sage in that person's presence and on him. Okay, this is very important. It is not that person's nature that is responsible for his evil deeds, but spells that have been put on him by others. Here we go with spells again. And how easy it is to put a spell on someone by just saying that that person is evil. You are putting a spell on them. And so the first thing you need to do, like it's saying here, let's just continue with the line, is the cosmic duty of the person who observes another doing evil things to first take away the spell he himself has put on him by saying he is evil, and then ask the sage whether he is meant to dispel any other spells in that person is under. The dragon appearing in the field can also indicate that a person is becoming aware of the existence of the collective ego and its controlling influence on his life. Heck yeah. Seeing the great man in this instance refers to seeing that his true self, with the help of the sage, is capable of leading his personality. He needs, however, to make a concerted effort to keep aware of the incursions of the ego and to keep saying the inner no to them. The dragon can also refer to a person's having an image of himself as a great man. In this fantasy, he sees himself idealized as the archetypal hero, father, mother, leader, or role model to others, or even as a god or goddess. The person has adopted these self-images to compensate for underlying images of himself as inferior or guilty, images which were instilled in him by the collective ego during childhood. All these self-images of greatness are based on the central myth of the collective ego, that humans are at the center of the universe. It is an irony that these opposite images continuously recreate each other, with greatness only increasing inferiority, and increased inferiority creating the need for more greatness, thus forcing the individual personality into the most extreme positions. Dragon appearing in the field can also be a metaphor for incorrectly seeing the invisible cosmic consciousness as God in man's image. In this case, it furthers one to see the great man, means to recognize that God as a high and powerful being is the product of human imagination and human self-idealization. Receiving this line can indicate that anyone who looks upward or outward to a deity for help is looking in the wrong direction. To access the helpers of the invisible world, a person needs to rid himself of the idea that the cosmos has a hierarchical order, for this only creates a false separation between himself and them. So really, this entire I Ching, really, one of its central tenets is that we do it to ourselves by holding false beliefs about the nature of the cosmos. We separate ourselves, therefore, from it by simply holding those beliefs, because those beliefs harm the helpers of the invisible world and slander the cosmic consciousness. By, if we don't believe it exists, that's a slander against it, So it's these false beliefs that we have, and we don't even know that they're false because we haven't looked at them reflectively. that are creating all these problems for us. And it's like, wow, I wish someone would have told me this a long time ago. Receiving this line can also indicate a person who sees some people as great and powerful and himself and others as inferior. To reclaim his true self, he needs to realize that all people and things are equal. He needs also to demystify all those he has seen as great and to release others, including himself, from the negative categories in which he has classified them. All right. Line 3. All day long, the superior man is creatively active. At nightfall, his mind is still beset with cares. Danger, no blame. All right, so the sage is informing a person not to approach his effort at self-correction or correcting anything ambitiously, as if it were religion, whereby he ignores his normal life. The danger refers to ambition as an activity of the ego. It would seize the development of the true self and impose it upon the person as a belief system, with rigid rules and duties, and the self-flattery that the more conscientious and self-effacing he is in his efforts, the more swiftly he will attain his goal. Danger refers to harboring and acting upon the idea that self-effacement and self-sacrifice constitute humility. This idea falsely equates effort at self-correction with asceticism, being poor, working without pay, or being otherwise selfless. This idea is based on the collective ego's idea that the self is the source of evil and therefore needs to be overcome through self-sacrifice. It is the ego that claims the victory when the self is sacrificed. So yeah, that it makes perfect sense. Like all these, the spiritual man developing, living a spiritual life. All that is the ego talking because it wants you to give up trying to free your true self from its control. It wants to redirect all that energy, the true life energy of your true self, to the collective ego's needs. That is the ego's purpose. So, but you see, like the collective ego has the idea that your true self is the source of evil, or opposition to itself, and that your true self, in fact, is the thing that needs to be eliminated in its system. Which isn't that so true? How many people out there, going to work every day and working for these corporations, and everything, how many of them are not living their according to their true selves, who are sacrificing themselves basically, through doing what the collective ego wants, doing what their egos keep telling them to do. It's terrible. It's really terrible. All right. No blame refers to a person's freeing himself of all kinds of ambition. And all ambition comes from the ego. At the core of spiritual ambition is the idea that it consists of work as self-development, with the implication that there's a spiritual ladder that sends upward to heaven. The ego, it's always wanting to make things into work, more work, work harder, better, and you'll be rewarded more somehow, right? All ambition belongs to the ego and is dependent on the person's believing in his original fault or inherent deficiency. Freeing his true self involves no striving. It is a process of deprogramming layers of mistaken ideas that have repressed and concealed it, his true self. All self-images of high achievement, whatever forms they take, only distract and divert a person from freeing his true self. This line is also about misunderstandings that surround the nature of creativity. True creativity is a partnership with the helpers of the invisible world. The presence of ambition is the mark of the person who believes he must do it all. On this account, his creativity suffers. Only when he asks for help from the anonymous helpers will he collect the help he needs for his inspiration and also to complete his work. To make this happen, he must first program the ideas behind his ambition, his dependence on the values of the collective ego for his inspiration, and his ideas of insufficiency of self that block synapses in his brain that would connect him with his feelings. All right, line 4, dragon casting about. Here, the ego is a person who has become a dragon through internalizing all the values of the collective ego and upholding them as its defender. He even believes his purpose is to judge others on its behalf. In doing so, he casts spells on them. Dragon casting about. Casting about can also refer to a person's contemplating which kind of hero he wants to become. the hero who promotes and defends the values of the collective ego, or the hero who defies them. In the latter case, he sees himself as a rebel hero, or one whose heroism is to become a recluse. What? Okay. Sure. Whether being a hero for or against the system, the person is still held within the parallel reality. There's that word again, parallel reality. It's an actual matrix we're living in. The Matrix, the movie, it really was like, in part to help wake us up to this fact, I believe. And he only ends in sacrificing his true self to the heroic self-image. When you believe in a self-image of yourself, which is what the ego tries to encourage you to do all the time, you are sacrificing your true self to that image of you, which is not you by any stretch of the imagination. It will never be you. So all you're doing is throwing your life energy away on that image. That's all you're doing. That's all you'll ever do by following that path. You have to walk your own path, the path that no one has ever trod before, and that is uniquely yours. Okay? And that is your cosmic purpose. And in doing so, you will increase the whole of the entire cosmos and gather its helpers around you to lift you up to that purpose, right? Because the cosmos wants to help everything that is in harmony with it. Okay. But it retreats absolutely completely from things that are stuck in the grasp of the collective ego. All right. Line 5, flying dragon in the heavens. It furthers one to seek out one's true nature. Flying dragon in the heavens represents the fantasized rewards promised by the collective ego if a person sacrifices his true self, as indicated in lines 3 and 4. In ancient China, the reward was immortality. This line indicates a person in whom spiritual ambition has reached its peak. It advises him to undertake the effort to return to his true nature in order to undo the fate he has created. This effort entails identifying and ridding himself of the cluster of mistaken ideas that revolve around the heavenly rewards offered by the collective ego for the sacrifice of his true nature. A person can also receive this line when he has accepted the ideas of immortality and immortality put forth by the collective ego. Both misrepresent the nature of the cosmos, which is the true source of never-ending life. Life, we are informed by the sage, continues in many dimensions and forms. However, when a person strives for immortality, the fate he creates is a premature death, which has the purpose of freeing him from the ego. So it's actually a good thing. This line can also refer to a person who sees with clarity the different ways in which the collective ego operates and the ways of the cosmos, and thus chooses the cosmic way. Line 6, arrogant dragon leads to humiliation. Afterwards, a new beginning is possible. Arrogant dragon can refer to a person who, after recognizing the true nature of the collective ego, still holds to its values out of fear of losing his titles and honors. Arrogant dragon also refers to the grandiose human-centered idea that in sacrificing his animal nature, a person will gain glory, recognition, or immortality. Such a view regards his earthly nature as degraded, unworthy, and mortal. It also implies that his nature is divided into spiritual and animal, with his spiritual nature being connected with immortality. This false division slanders the wholeness and integrity of his nature. Receiving this line informs him that he has created a fate by his ambition to reach immortality. Because he has lost contact with the earth, reality, fate will bring him back to his senses. To restore his original wholeness and to end his fate, he needs to rid himself of ambition and the ideas that cause him to strive. Fate, coming in the form of an illness, brings the person back to his senses. At the same time, a person need not suffer through his fate to its end. He can end it by ridding himself of the poison arrows that have slandered his true nature and his senses. These poison arrows consist of all the phrases and images that see his animal nature as primitive and lowly and as the source of evil. The downfall is brought about by the slandered senses themselves, because any slander turns them into helpers of fate. The law of fate is also demonstrated in all those situations where people have declared a ship to be unsinkable or a building to be indestructible, or when those small back of the mind thoughts say, now I am secure, or I have finally got things where I want them. All such thoughts are human-centered and have to do with wanting to fix things in a certain position and time and place. A spell, in other words, right? All such fixing leads to rigidity and decay. This sign may also indicate that through correcting himself, a person has ended his fate and invoked the cosmic principle of transformation. This leads to a new beginning in his relationship with the cosmos. All right, well, that's Hexagram 1. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for the next one.